Do you remember? I sent you an email about about those African martial arts.
Yes, dude. Let's talk about some of that, man.
So I was doing a documentary on my channel called Ancient Boxing History. And I actually wanted to do a lot of martial arts history. I was watching one of your videos. It was like 1928, where it was these guys practicing boxing and wrestling, the soldiers. And it dawned on me. People like to push the narrative that MMA didn't exist until like the UFC or whatever. But I'm like, what if people have been doing this stuff? How long have people really been doing this?
Yeah.
So I started looking back into many different martial arts, and pretty much soldiers, and as long as there's been warfare, people have been doing martial arts. Unarmed martial arts come from, oh, I dropped my weapon. Kicking actually comes from people using swords and, oh shit, this guy's coming. I gotta kick him. Or my sword is stuck. Or we're clashing and I gotta. That's where kicking comes from.
Yeah.
You get me? Wrestling and all martial arts boil down to three things. Or two things: striking and grappling. You could say punching, kicking, elbows, knees, headbutts, and then grappling is throwing, slamming, takedowns, submissions, cranks. You get me? It's all the same. So I started studying. I'm doing them by continent. So I'll go for Africa, West Asia, then East Asia. Europe, not technically a continent, but I will do Europe after that, and so on and so forth, and then move to the Americas. What I learned about African martial arts is a very, very interesting story. MMA actually existed here in America. Like, people paid and bet on these fights here in America, and and in Africa. So African martial arts, generally those three categories. Kicking, the kicking arts were arts like Ladja, Capoeira. They all come from Angola. And in African arts, it was a sort of a social marker. Let's say I want to know what tribe you come from. I'll look at the martial art you practice. There's stories of a dude who got sold into slavery, and they were moving him through Africa. And he was like, I recognize all these people, we spoke the same language. And then when they moved him to somewhere else, he's like, I don't recognize any of these people that he's held with. But he started looking at the way they punch, the way they hold their fists, the wrestling techniques they use. And they were like, oh, he must be from North Africa or something like that. And this system was actually used by Europeans in order to differentiate between different groups that they were taken into slavery. They'd be like, oh, he's a Coromantee. Look at his style of wrestling. So long before we had like UK wrestling and American wrestling and boxing in the Americas, a lot of them came from Africans that were captured. They were warriors. The best example being capoeira. Capoeira comes from Angola. That's why it used to be called Capoeira Angola. Now, they're the kicking tribes, if you will. However, there's different aspects to capoeira that does include wrestling and open hand boxing, which is a style known as Kandenka, which comes from South Africa, right? Kandenka is mostly focused on evasion, not getting hit. So when you see people like Floyd Mayweather, you're like, yo, your ancestors might come from fucking South Africa, you get me? So you had arts like capoeira, which come from an African art called Engolo, which comes from Angola. And you had during like, where you had Africans working aboard ships, the ships became a site for martial arts exhibitions because it was the one place where blacks and whites during slavery were actually sort of comrades, if you will, because oftentimes Africans would be working there as chefs, as like crew members, and people who were going to war. They're on the ship, and whenever they would have like downtime when they're drinking and whatnot, they would fight. So there's like stories about them exchanging martial arts, where UK boxing was introduced to these kickers who they never punched with closed fists, they punched with open hands. So the creation of Savat, have you ever seen Savat?
Yes.
What is Savate? What does it mostly do?
I think Savat has those really cool kicks, assuming you have shoes or boots on. Right? It's got the kicks, and they got really cool head movement.
Where's the shoes come from?
I assume, the Europeans probably, on the ships wore the shoes, right?
Ship shoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was a dude. Oh, first off, well, let's go back to Engolo, right? In Engolo, they believe that, I don't completely get it, so I'm still reading about it, and there's a book I'll recommend. But in Engolo, they believe that their ancestors live in a spirit world where they walk on their hands, right? So the purpose of touching the floor when you do capoeira and you do inverted kicks is to connect with your ancestors, right? They used to attach blades to their feet, touch the ground, and walk upside down and slash people's throats.
Wow.
There was a dude in Africa, recording what he was seeing. And he saw an Engolo practitioner with, he quoted saying, you only need 2 arrows if you're gonna fight them. Because the first arrow, you're gonna miss. And by the time you draw for your second arrow, he would have already jumped so fucking far that he's on top of you and he would kill you.
Wow.
Now, the practice in Savat where you touch the ground and kick, that comes from Engolo. It comes from the same art as capoeira, the same mother. In the French islands of Martinique, there is a art called Ladja. You remember in your video, you would call it Haitian.
Yeah,
capoeira.
I called it Kalaja or something. My apologies. I didn't know it was called Kalaja.
There's a bunch of arts like that, but they all come from that mother art. It's just they got taken to different places. So when the French were interacting with Haitians and the what are they called? Martinique, they took the kicks of Ladja and combined it with European boxing. And it was brought to the port of Marseille. And Marseille was a famous sea harbor and whatnot where these soldiers were. That's why they do it with the boat shoes and whatnot, because they learned on the boat.
And it's fascinating talking about boat, because I doubt this is really true, but some Wing Chun people say that Wing Chun evolved from boats. That's why they got the pigeon toe stance. It depending on what lineage of Wing Chun.
I wouldn't be surprised, because what you do it here and then you bring the foot forward, you turn the feet inward like this, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised. Have you ever thought about functional Wing Chun?
Absolutely, man. I think I want to bring on more Wing Chun people who want to show me, not the Wing Chun that keeps getting beat up in China or the Hitman stuff in the movies, but actual functional Wing Chun. That's why Silala, the Taiwanese Wing Chun guy, gets so much love on my channel, because he seems to have a functional Wing Chun. As much as people criticize him for looking too much like kickboxing, it's come on, you see Wing Chun in his style. Don't call him a kickboxer.
So check this out. Wing Chun has to be made, how do I say this? Let's go back to the rules, right? It's all it's all striking and grappling. Wing Chun is in between. It's that phase where you're holding and striking. And I think Wing Chun matches should reflect that. You get me? There's an art called, you can look this up, it's called Akrafena, right? So Akrafena is an African martial art. It was invented with the sword. It was meant to be done with a sword and a sheath in hand. Wow. So you're using your sword and your sheath and you're trying to hold the person, right? So Akrafena, it's the national sport of the Ashanti people, right? So the Ashantis had an empire called the Akan Empire. It's known as the Gold Coast, right? It's supposedly the most gold in the world. All the world's gold comes from there, allegedly. Now, Jamaicans, my people, the Dreads, right? We were taken from Akan. We were taken from the Akan people. So we're descendants of Akan people during the transatlantic slave trade that got taken to Jamaica. If you look up the Akrafena is not only a martial art, but it's a sword, right? and the sword is the symbol of the Akan Empire. But what it is, it looks like a machete or a cutlass. So just interesting story to connect. The Haitian Revolution was actually sparked by a Jamaican man who carried an Akrafena. Wow. Of course, it wasn't as fancy as an Akrafena. It was a basic cutlass, as we say in Jamaica, a machiet, a blood-clad machiet.
Wow. Dude, this is so fascinating. Dude, thank you so much for bringing this up, man. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this into 3 sections. This will be one section. The first part will be another section, and then the middle part will go on Jerry Learns Business. So, dude, this is so fascinating. Tell me more about what inspired you to kind of look up all this history, like do your research. Tell me more about that, because that's kind of in itself an entrepreneurial thing that you're doing, but you're also changing the world of martial arts understanding, which is awesome.
So well, first off, thanks for having me. I appreciate you giving me lending me your platform to talk about this. And I do want to finish up the whole Wing Chun connection, right? How we can functionalize Wing Chun. So I wanted to know more. Well, how did I start? I bought a book from a dude called Obesi. Oh, hold on a second. Let me find the book.
Sure.
Here we go. So it's called Fighting for Honor, The History of African American Martial Arts in the Atlantic World, T.J. Deshi Obi. It's like $60, but for me, it's worth it. What I realized that martial arts is a cultural commodity. And I was actually watching a lot of your videos. I learned that a lot of the reasons why you would ask when Xu Xiaodong went around beating people up with their saying your martial arts is fake. Well, the reason why the Chinese government is going to be angry at that is because martial arts is a commodity. There's a lot of money in it. Can you imagine how much, since the beginning of Chinese martial arts influence in the West, how much paraphernalia, movies, and millions of dollars have come in? So if you're here beating them up with martial arts that don't come from China, it's kind of a black eye. You get me? So I wanted to explore different forms of martial arts. And I realized that all martial arts is punching, kicking. It's punching, kicking, or grabbing. Style is individual. I like to move my body like this, so I'll throw my jab like that. You can't really, when you try to invent a style, it's like, I'm gonna do my version of the wheel. There's only so much that you can do to the wheel that makes it less functional, where it's too fancy and now it's devoid of the function. Yeah. So once I learned that all martial arts boils down to kicking and punching, I made a video to uproot the martial arts that I believe are a testament to the functionality of martial arts. Boxing, Taekwondo, karate, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, Tai Chi Chuan. I question the validity of capoeira being a functional art, simply because there's no sport capoeira. However, it can be a functional art because the kicks are there and we've seen it used in MMA. But that's pretty much how I got to that.
Wow. That's so fascinating. And dude, I would love to have you on more, man. This is the type of discussion I wanted to have when I started interviewing people. So this is great. This is so cool. Like, I've got so many viewers who want to explore African martial arts more. So look at that viewer. I know viewers are gonna love this. And if you guys don't love this, viewers, I don't know. I'm gonna like take a shot of alcohol or something.
So let me tell you about the functionality of Wing Chun. Right? Still going over it. So when I was a kid, when I was a little lad in Jamaica, I heard of something called bangarang. Adata bangarang, right? Mm-hmm. And bangarang is like an old English word for like a tussle, a toss-up, like violent skirmish, a bangarang, or a lot of noise. It's a commotion. Mm-hmm. But I was told about bangarang. And what I don't remember it so much, but to the best of my knowledge, when I read about Akrafena and I learned about Akrafena, I realized that bangarang, it has to be a descendant of Akrafena because just Jamaicans are descendants of Ashanti people.
Mm-hmm.
You get me? Even the sword, we still carry the sword. The sword literally freed our people, and it was the symbol of their empire. So Akrafena is the sword, but the martial art comes along with the sword. And it's similar, but not quite the same as Wing Chun. It's having something in your hand and grabbing something. Imagine having a sword in your hand that's back like this and your sheath. You can shield a person, and there's a lot of elbows. There's a lot of getting into the trap. It's trap distance fighting. You get me?
Yeah.
Or it's similar to Muay Thai. It's clinch fighting.
Yeah.
In the clinch. So I realized that you can say there are three types of arts: the striking arts, the grappling arts, and the grappling striking combination arts, which is where Wing Chun would fall.
Mm-hmm.
I think Wing Chun would be best if you made it on a small platform that you can't run around. And you have to fight right here. You have to fight right here. So the only thing you could do is grab each other, elbow, and fight just in that area. You get me?
Yeah.
And it makes sense. So you can lose if you fall off the platform. Maybe you could put water around it or some shit.
I think that's really cool. Rob and I made a video. Rob has a very small room, and he has so much stuff in the room. So we were just practicing like regular boxing combos in a very secluded, small, claustrophobic space. And I felt something weird. I'm like, this is different than getting put in a corner when you're boxing or kickboxing. Right? This is just like the entire room is small. Like everywhere's a corner. And I'm like, I'm sure you hit someone with a punch, it's going to hurt. But there might be other arts. Like you said, maybe Wing Chun would be really suited for, like, if you're stuck in a stall or, like, you just happen to be in a closet and you get attacked. Maybe the first thing to use in that situation, like you said, is Wing Chun. Or, like, if you're on a lifeboat, like you're on a cruise ship and, like, you're fighting over a lifeboat or something, like, maybe kickboxing wouldn't be the best thing to use in that situation. It's so interesting.
Yeah, you don't have the space. You definitely don't have the space.
Yeah.
I think it's possible. They just got to be willing to get hurt, because most damage is taking place right in that range.
Yeah.
So when I visualized it, I just imagine it being the more of a violent art.
Yeah.
You get me?
Yeah. So I think if they're going to test it, wear the mouth guards, wear the headpieces, do a million neck exercises, make sure your upper back is strong so you can take those blows, because like you, I want to see them explore kind of like no escape trapping range, basically. I guess maybe that's the word to say. No escape trapping range. You can't run around. You literally have to stick with trapping or grappling range. And how could Wing Chun work? And maybe it could work there.
Well, you would have to make rules, right? Like drawing from what I've learned about Bangarang, and using like Wing Chun techniques. Make it a rule where you have to grab each other in order to hit.
Oh.
You have to be in boxing. You're not allowed to touch and punch. So imagine if we're like this. You ever seen two wrestlers going at each other like this? They're looking for that area to grab.
Yeah.
Well, you grab my hand, I'm allowed to hit you. You're allowed to hit me. So you grab my wrist, you can punch me. Well, if you're throwing a punch to me, I can grab that, and guess what? You can turn that into an elbow, and now we're in the clinch. But it'll eventually turn right into grappling. So it'd be a couple seconds of Wing Chun, then grappling, and then it would be stand back up and let's go at it again.
Well, that's kind of a cool thing, yeah. And sometimes, like in a real confined space, you literally have no room to even launch a strike. So you literally have to grab and before you even strike. That's so interesting. I never thought about that.
Have you ever seen George Foreman fight?
Which fight are you gonna talk about? That maybe he used some of these techniques?
George Foreman does. Look up George Foreman versus Michael Moore.
Okay.
He does it in a couple of his earlier fights, and he does it in the Moore fight, right? So this is similar to the boxing of South. It's similar to Okandenka. I think it's a South African martial art. But it's open hand boxing, right? It's about evasion and it's about not getting hit. It's hit and don't get hit. That's typically a form of slap boxing. But there are techniques in it where your opponent is throwing and you interrupt him and you catch his punch. You catch it on either the knuckle or like the wrist or whatever the case, right? Foreman does that the whole fight. Where
I see it. I see it. I see it, man. The clip I literally just stumbled on when you said it. The guy throws a jab, and Foreman kind of parries it out of the way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
So imagine that, and what people will tend to do when they catch on to the fact that you're doing that is that they go over the top.
Yeah. Well, that he ate a punch like that. I just saw.
What is this?
Boom.
Come on, you know what this is.
You're asking me a Wing Chun term?
Yeah.
I don't know, Biel Sao or something?
That's a Bung Sao.
Bung Sao, yeah.
So when your opponent comes over the top, over your punch, you turn it into a elbow block. And you keep your shoulder there. Or you can even turn it into a shoulder roll and come right back.
Yeah.
Right? So what I've been doing is sitting down and like looking over different styles of boxing technique and trying to create my own. I love that technique, and I saw the weakness in it, and I've developed on it. Like turning, if your opponent gets past you blocking with your hand, the next area is for you to block with your forearms. And if he gets over that, he's usually looking for your head. So the best thing is to block with the shoulder. So it's different points of blocking. So I can either block with my forearm or I can even block with my elbow coming up. I'm pretty sure that's legal in boxing.
Yeah. As you're talking about it, I was looking at more of the fight. Like, in a very weird way, this George Foreman versus Michael Moorer fight, George Foreman almost fights like a Jeet Kune Do guy. It's so funny.
Right.
He's fighting like he keeps trapping in different ways. It's so interesting.
Exactly. The functionality is there for Wing Chun, but it's only a small part of a fight. If you wanted it to be a sport, it would have to be its own thing where the rules are, we're only right here. Get me?
Yeah. Wow. I think we need to talk to Tsilala about this, man. Maybe I need to translate this into Chinese, so we need to tell Tsilala maybe he can start something in Taiwan. He'd be down. I mean, he's always sparring. So
what weight does he fight at?
I don't remember. I can look it up real quickly. He's probably fighting at like maybe somewhere in the 140s. I think he's a little lighter than me. Like, I'm about 150. Let me see.
Well, I mean, no one fights at their like walk around weight, which is fucking stupid. What are your thoughts on that?
I guess if you're gonna cut weight by the water weight thing, I think I'm a little bit nervous. But like you said, there's so much debate about, what weight. Do you go up? Do you go down? Yeah, I'm undecided about this. I'm looking up right now what weight class he's fighting. Oh, he's bantamweight.
Damn, too small. I mean, I walk around like at 185, but when I fought at 165.
Oh, wow.
65.
Wow. You're a big dude then.
Nah, I'm 5'10", 180, 185.
Wow.
Nah, I definitely wish I was a heavyweight. I wish I could fight at heavyweight. Because I used to lift for a while, and if you want to fight, you can't have those two goals. You can't be a fighter and a bodybuilder. Yeah. The goals don't work together. Gaining weight, and I'm like, shit, if I'm going to fight, like if I want to box right now, if I wanted to box at 168, I would have to fight guys like, do you watch boxing at all?
Not that much.
Well, you can look them up. David Benavidez, but this dude allegedly walks around at 230 pounds. Wow. Like, bro, what the fuck? Allegedly. But even if it's 200 pounds, dude, I don't walk around at 200. I'm a $180, $185. Yeah. If I eat well.
Exactly. Talk about eating well, man. That's one thing. Jerry always doesn't eat that much. I need to eat more. I'm like, what are the opposites? Like, when I get stressed, I don't eat. So I always lose weight.
Yeah, it affects the stomach.
Yeah.
Now you got to drink.
That's why I live by the beach, right? The beach is right there. So your astrology thing is accurate. Like the beach, being close to water, it really heals.
Yeah, make sure you drink a lot of water.
Yeah, I am so sensitive to dehydration, man. Dude, I think I need to bring you on my other channel to talk about more horoscope stuff, man. I have another channel. Dude, you're welcome on that channel in the future.
With it. Let's do it.
Oh man, this is cool.
We can
Guys,
talk about fights.
What's up?
You can come on my channel. We can talk about fights.
Dude, totally, man. Totally. This is so cool. For viewers watching, man, I'll put all the links to all the stuff we talked about, and I'll bring this man back, man. He's such a cool dude. I'm gonna subscribe to you with my Jerry Learns Business channel too. So I think I'm already subscribed to you with fight commentary breakdowns, but I'll subscribe to you with my Jerry Learns Business.
I just saw YouTube updates me.
Yeah. So guys, this talk's gonna go on multiple channels. So not only follow him, but go on my other channels to catch the rest of these talks. I'll probably upload this segment first, like the African martial arts and all that. It's so fascinating.
I got a documentary on my channel. Like I said, I'm really working on trying to work on one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had a chance to really update those documentaries, but it's called The Ancient History of Boxing,
mm-hmm.
where I go from Africa to the Middle East to Greece to Rome to modern day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to say this, and now that you mentioned this, I remembered. I think the thing about martial arts is a lot of times credit is not given where it's due. And in a lot of Western martial arts, I think there is a lot of Western African, just in general, a lot of African influence, but I think a lot of Western African influence because a lot of the slave trade, had a central part there. But there is a lot of Western African and just in general African influence in a lot of Western martial arts that is not given credit. I 100% agree with you on that.
Well, more to that point, I mean, like, I'm not crying about it, but more to that point, if you explore the history of capoeira, because there's a bunch of other arts that I can get into them a little later, but if you explore the history of capoeira, it was originally called capoeira Engolo. And it was something that they came over to Brazil knowing. Hence, it was called capoeira because it comes from the word Kipura, which was the dance. Kipura was a festival that they did. It wasn't the actual fight. The actual fight was called Engolo. So it's Kipura Engolo. And it was where, when it became popular, they outlawed it. And if you look at like Brazil's jail records, anyone who was like in jail for capoeira, it was mostly black people. But when they came out, they reinvented it and called it capoeira regional. And they were like, oh, no, it was strictly developed in Brazil. So first we locked you up and then we remade it and renamed it and then told you you didn't really make it. So that's why I want to make videos about that, because leave it up to Brazil, they'll tell you they invented it and it doesn't come from Angola. Because, not necessarily for racism, but for profit.
Profit, of course. Think about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? Every move in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is in judo. I mean, some people might get mad at me, but yeah, maybe they didn't practice some of it as much as what you do in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but all those moves, leg locks, everything, all those moves were in judo.
So would I be a dick for not saying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and just calling it ground Jiu-Jitsu?
I would say let's just call it ground Jiu-Jitsu in the future. It's
ground Jiu-Jitsu because you're trying to say that capoeira Engolo is capoeira regional, which means like capoeira of the region of Brazil. So it's what it is. It's about marketing. Yeah. And I do respect the Gracies in that, because when they taught people, they told them, you cannot call it something else. Don't take it and call it. But that's what you did. Yeah. That's what you did. You took catch-as-catch-can wrestling and you took judo and boom. And so when I realized that style is pretty much an individual thing and it becomes a point of marketing. It's like trying to reinvent the wheel. What you can really do is make a tradition for your people. Yeah. And that's what I was trying to uncover. I'm like, where are the Africans don't fight? Like, we don't know nothing. And that's when I went digging. And what it turns out is that like a lot of martial arts were here in America, especially wrestling. Yeah. Africans were wrestling a lot. Do you want to hear about the first MMA in America?
Yes, please.
So the first MMA in America started out like this. Like I said, different Africans practiced different martial arts, and it represented their spirituality. Whatever spiritual system they believed in, they practiced that martial art. So you had Okandenka slap boxers from the South who you could never hit them. they were really good at not getting hit. So your Floyd Mayweathers, your what's his name? Oh, damn, I'm forgetting his name. Sweet Pea, you guys like that, Roy Jones Jr. Then you had like Dambe boxers who they
exactly.
Look at Deontay Wilder. You ever seen Deontay Wilder?
Yes.
Deontay Wilder says he's got Nigerian blood. Where does Dambe come from?
Oh,
Nigeria.
Yeah, that area. Yeah.
So then you had wrestling groups. So in UK, in like Greco-Roman wrestling, ankle picking was not allowed, right? You're not allowed certain types of throws and anything from the leg. You can't trip and you can't do any ankle picking. This was something that has been going on in Africa for literally thousands of years, since the Egyptians. The Egyptians had been ankle picking. They even drew it. In fact, the first boxing training camp took place in Egypt. It's on a hieroglyph. Like they had kettlebells. They had there's like a whole hieroglyph of them doing a clean and jerk and shit with like makeshift kettlebells. But when Africans were brought here to the Americas, seasonally, they were allowed to leave the plantation to go to other plantations, and they were given like passes so that they wouldn't be harassed by the ancient police officers, right? So when they would meet up at these parties to celebrate their holidays and whatnot, they would often wrestle and headbutt each other. They had a martial art that was strictly about headbutting.
Wow.
Yeah. There's pictures of it. They would hold each other, bang, bang, and get on all fours and try to knock each other out. But they had the little kicking arts, their punching arts, and wrestling arts. And the overseers were like, we can make some money off of this. So they organized fights. It wasn't death matches because you didn't want to damage the person because then they couldn't work. Exactly. And then you would lose a lot of income. So there were rules and there was a sort of refereeing, but it was where they're like, your guy is going to fight my guy. Your champion from that plantation and the champion from this plantation. They're going to fight, and they would bet and they would put it together. And it was wrestling, it was punching, it was kicking, there was headbutts, and there was knees. Yeah. Sounds like MMA to me.
Yeah, that sounds like Vale Tudo, basically.
Well, that was the Brazilian version. That's how Vale Tudo was born in the South Americas, whereas in like they called them slave fights up here or something else. I forgot what they called them.
And
Royal Rumbles.
Royal Rumbles. It's funny you're talking about this because I was going to segue into that too. I was exactly going to talk about that in the antebellum days, basically the different plantations would have the slaves fight in these matches. And I'm sure a lot of those techniques that came from Africa made it into some of the later American martial arts, including probably American wrestling.
American wrestling, Savate for a fact, because the evidence was on from the ship. There was a dude named I can't remember his name, but he was a chef. He was a chef on board a ship, and they called him a champion of champions because he had known many different martial arts. There's even recorded stories of like French sailors coming to different parts of Africa where they would literally like ditch their platoon and they would go seek out these nighttime fights that the tribes would have. And they'd come there and they'd write shit down, and then you have Savate. So Savate, there was a martial art called the Charleston. I've never actually seen it. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I've not heard of it, but that sounds pretty cool.
The Charleston is like American capoeira.
Oh.
But it's I've never seen it, but I've heard it's a dance where it's mostly kicks. It's like a dance. I think the can was born out of that, but there's an actual dance called the Charleston. Now, have you ever seen the Russian leg sweep?
The Russian leg sweep. I've not seen that.
So the Russian leg sweep, you can Google that. It's when you hug someone like this, you put your arm over them, and they have their arm over you, and you have your legs interlocked, right? And you're fighting over the leg, and you like trip each other and slam each other from there.
Ooh.
That's an African form of wrestling that was very heavy in South Carolina.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
But as far as like modern boxing, most of the like boxers that came over were open. Oh no, I got to tell you about this guy. So there was a guy named King Dick. right? AK, his real name was Richard Crafis. So Richard Crafis he was in the military. Like I said, like post slavery, actually more. What people don't know is that the Revolutionary War, America was losing the Revolutionary War until Washington enlisted Black people, and a number of Blacks were given freedom for fighting in the Revolutionary War, or given like sort of a higher status, so to speak. And that was the same thing that happened with the Civil War, where he didn't want to bring Blacks into the Civil War because he knew he would have to promise us the end of slavery.
Yeah.
But it's where by bringing Blacks into the Civil War, it ultimately won us the war. But during that time, during the War of 1812, you had a guy named Richard Crafis he was in the military, and they got captured over in England. So the British captured them, and they were stationed in like some jail or whatever. And basically, he beat everybody up in the jail and established himself as, I run shit in this prison. He outboxed everybody. And then he started teaching boxing to the inmates of foreign countries. Anyone who was our allies, I think there were French allies there too. But this was in 1812, and he became a famous boxing teacher in the UK. And then when he came back to America, because and this is also something that history doesn't tell you, there was actually like, we had our own sort of government where if Black people committed a crime in America, you wouldn't deal with it directly. You would go to the Black government of America, and he was seen as like a de facto leader of sorts. And he opened up many boxing schools across America. And most boxing coaches have their lineage in Richard Crafis, allegedly.
Wow. Yeah. I will put a link to that too for viewers that are interested.
You can get it from this dude's book, TJ Obi.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a link to that too. That's like probably one of the most fascinating books that I want to read. I'll put it in my Amazon store.
Oh shit, I opened up a page to Ladja.
Nice.
Engolo, yeah, Danmye. That was the one I saw on your channel, Danmye.
Yeah. You know, Danmye, I feel like there's just so much room for like martial arts movies that talk about these topics, man. There's like, you know, since now the world is kind of getting tired of like kung fu movies and stuff, I think it's time to do more of these movies.
Yeah,
talk about like African martial arts. Like, you know, the Ming Dynasty went to Africa. Like, who's to say there weren't some like martial arts exchanges? You know, these Ming Dynasty soldiers and some of the East Africans.
Well, I want you to think about this. Have you ever seen the Minoan paintings of the boxers?
I have not, but I'm going to look this up right now.
Okay, so look at the Minoan boxers. They only wear one glove. That means they must have traded at one point with the Husa people because they only wear one glove. Maybe, or it could have developed independently, or it could have been some kind of trade. They could have learned it from each other.
Mm-hmm.
You get me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like one
thing I'm trying to look for a picture right now, but if I find a picture, I'll put it later. Oh wow, look at that! I do see it. Hey, yeah, like you said, it's a picture of two ladies boxing, and one's wearing a glove, and the other they both only have one glove. That's so cool.
I think those are two really effeminate dudes.
Oh.
I could be wrong, but they do look like ladies.
Yeah, you're right. They're dudes. Like the Hittites too. The Hittites had those really long ponytails. In fact, that one crucial battle where Egypt won over the Hittites, what they did was on the chariots, the Egyptians, because they had the faster 2-horse chariots, they pulled the Hittites by their ponytails. And the Hittites had a 3-horse. They had a 3-person chariot. No, the Egyptians had a 2-person chariot. So the 3-person chariot was more powerful, but the 2-person chariot was more maneuverable. So I believe this was Ramses. It was the Pharaoh Ramses. But so the Egyptians they would pull by the ponytails the Hittites off their chariots and stab them with their cool sickle swords.
What a dick! Have you ever heard of the Sinites?
I have not. Tell me about that.
So check. Have you ever heard of the Canaanites?
Yes.
So I actually go over the Canaanites in my ancient boxing history.
Mm-hmm.
Before the Greeks had their amphitheater, it's actually, they found in Syria or in Canaanite territory the same thing, the same exact design, but it's about 1,300 years older.
Mm-hmm.
The Canaanites are also known as the Phoenicians,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there are many different types of Canaanites.
Yeah.
It was alleged that a man named Canaan created all of them, right? So Canaan had a bunch of kids. One of them was named Hit. Hit created the Hittites.
Yeah.
Sin created the Sinites. So allegedly, Sin traveled all the way to the east and created the Sino people.
I've actually heard about this. I've definitely heard about this. Yeah, this is pretty interesting.
But allegedly, Chinese people descend from Sinites, which
Yeah,
are
I've definitely heard about this in college. I had a friend, a Chinese American like me, who was like really into hip hop culture, and I sent it to him immediately. And then the next day, he's like, "Black Power, dude!" He was so excited. He's like, "Yeah!" I was like, "Dude, that's right." And then he never went with his love for hip hop and rap, man. He never went for it. He was a really talented rapper. He ended up getting a job on Wall Street and marrying a Chinese girl, and he has a kid now. You know, people need to go for what you're meant to do, man.
Would you believe I was in a metal band?
That's amazing.
I quit a couple years ago, but I'm trying to get them together to do one song.
Nice.
Like record one song.
What what position in the metal band? Are you the drums? Oh, yeah.
I was the guy making all the fucking weird noises.
Nice.
So, you want to know something interesting?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a mosh pit?
Yes.
Okay.
I've been in a mosh pit once. You know, I was protecting my face. This is my mosh pit story. So I'm protecting my face, and I'm only bumping with my shoulder because I don't want to hit people, right? I don't want to be disrespectful, but, you know, other people are hitting me. But, like, there were girls in the mosh pit, too. So I was just using my shoulders to check them. It was really funny. That was my mosh pit.
Were they swinging fists like this?
No, they were just pushing, and some of them were hitting like this, but nobody was going like this. None of the Master Ken type of stuff, none of that. Did
they do any of the acrobatics? No acrobatic kicks?
No kicks, thank goodness. That mosh pit had no kicks. If there were kicks, I probably would have not shoulder bumped. I would have been much more careful.
So I got a fascinating story for you. But first, I am the king of moshing in New York City. Like, I used to promote a lot of like hardcore and metal shows, and I would mosh to every single band. So, like, I got a history of moshing here. But check this out. You played a video where it was in the same video where you were like Haitian Capoeira or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It says it was the video that said Jamaican field work in Jamaica and Martinique.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that video?
Honestly, I've looked at so many, I probably don't remember.
I'll send you the video, but it's a video from 1938, and it says field work. It shows like field workers doing like ghetto capoeira, where they're just dancing in a circle and then they throw random spin kicks and shit. So that was in Jamaica and Martinique, right? Mm-hmm. Here's the interesting story. My family, when I was like into metal and like skateboarding and stuff like that, they would like, "Oh, you're a white boy in a black man's body. That's white boy stuff." Like, dude, shut up. I like what I like. It is what it is. But my uncle had told me, he was like, a lot of that stuff, it started with black people. So you shouldn't feel that bad about it. And I'm like, how do you mean? Because I'm like, no, black people are copying rock now, because that's when rock and hip hop started coming together. Mm-hmm. So I saw a video. No, first off, I learned about how mosh pits became a mosh pit. The word mosh pit came from a Jamaican band. They were yelling, "Mash it up," which means to mess things up, like to mash it together.
Oh.
So, and they took it and said, "Oh, mosh," like with a more UK twang, but it's from mosh, as in mash. So they eventually called it a mosh pit, right? Now, if you could look up a dance, a form of music called ska.
Yeah, ska. So
ska, which I did not know until very recently, originated in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. And eventually you had it blew up in the UK and became ska punk.
Yeah.
Right? So ska punk is where you have like skanking and that form of moshing with the two-step. Yeah. Which is the shit that I fucking love. I like I said, I'm the king of moshing in NYC all day, every day. So the skanking and the moshing, right? When I saw that video, prior to seeing it on your channel, the video 1938 Jamaican field work, it's a bunch of dudes gathered around, and it's two dudes in there, and they look like they're moshing. They're doing two steps, and I'm like, wait, that makes sense. Because in African martial arts, they had a few phases of it. They had the war phase where it was meant for killing, the recreational where it was meant for sport, and also the dance version where they would just dance in a circle with the martial art, but they don't actually try to hit you. Where you had arts like capoeira, Ladja Danmye throughout the Caribbean. Now, those dances that came from the martial arts evolved into the dancing of ska. The dancing of ska evolved into the mosh pit dancing. So the mosh pit actually has its roots in a Jamaican martial art. But I'll show you the videos again. Wow. I'll show you, it's on your channel. I'll send you the link to your own channel with the damn video.
Yeah. Wow. This is cool, man. For viewers watching, this is Focus Ball, and this guy's Healer. That's his name, Healer. And we're going to definitely bring him back. If you guys have any questions about Focus Ball, about any of this stuff, actually, if you guys have questions about Focus Ball, wait, because I'm going to put that part of the interview up soon. But if you have questions about African martial arts, first of all, go to his channel. But if you think his channel doesn't answer some of your questions, we can bring him back, and we will talk more about this. By the way, could you share your real name, or is that kind of like a secret for now?
No, Jason is fine. Jason's my real name, but like I said, Jason means healer, and my job is a mind-body coach, so it's Healer, the mind-body coach.
Exactly. Healer, the mind-body coach. Jason, I need to look up the etymology, the word history of Jason.
Greek. Iosus. Actually, it's related to the Hebrew name for Jesus, Yeshua.
It is. You're right.
Name Yeshua would change their name to Jason to sound more Greek because they didn't like their own culture. So they were like, nah, I'm more Greek now. So they would change their name to Jason. But the root of Jason is, I think, Iosu or Iaso, which means to heal or remedy, elixir.
Yeah. It's funny also because Jason in Greek is like Ioson, like you said, right? And there's actually like people from Hong Kong. It's so funny. Nobody in mainland China, nobody in Taiwan gives themselves the name Ioson, but like people in Hong Kong love to go by Ioson. You know why? Probably the most famous Chinese rock, the most famous Hong Kong rock band that was famous in China too. There was a singer of the group named Ilson. So it inspired a lot of Hong Kong people when they picked not American names. When they picked Western names, they would pick Ilson. Pretty funny. And that's before you told me about the Greek root of Jason, I wouldn't have known. I would have called it Eason. I was like, oh, it's just like Hong Kong people not understanding English. But now I know, no, they're actually calling themselves by a Greek name. Mad respect for Hong Kong people for calling themselves Ilson.
Where are you from?
I'm from Chengdu. I'm from Southwest China.
Okay, I played a lot of Dynasty Warriors. I think I know where that's.
Yeah, you know where that is. The Shu. The Shu was in Chengdu.
Who?
The Shu, the kingdom that had the really smart tactician.
Shu, the green one. The green one. Yeah, Shu.
Yeah, the Shu. So Chengdu is the capital of the Shu.
Okay.
Yeah. Chengdu has a lot of cool history too because Chengdu is not that far from Southeast Asia, right? So they had a lot of interactions, and before the first like quote unquote Chinese empire, the Qin dynasty, the Qingchao, they actually had to conquer the Shu people. The Shu people before then weren't even part of China. So it's really cool to look at the history of that. Yeah, as Chinese people dig up more stuff, they're building buildings all the time, right? China's building up so much. They keep digging up new civilizations that aren't part of the official kind of Yellow River area type of stuff. A lot of stuff emerged in other parts of China.
Well, that's what I noticed when I look at history. A lot of people, it's the same thing in Africa, where there's a lot of people that consider themselves their own thing. They're not really a part of that whole thing. Even languages and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But is it similar where cities and languages are named after fathers or great men? Do you have that?
Not really. So here's the thing. A lot of the cities in China have been around for, thousands of years. So, a lot of those cities have been flattened by, let's say, World War II and stuff like that or whatever. But, they're still built on the ground. So, like, you look at ancient Chinese maps, a lot of those cities were there. It's so fascinating. Unfortunately, a lot of the architecture doesn't exist anymore. A lot of it got destroyed in World War II. And then when China was modernizing, they kind of like didn't really preserve a lot of stuff. But, a lot of those cities have, at least, I'm sure if you dig up, how like in Philadelphia or like even old American cities, you can like dig up layers of different periods, right? You could probably do that too in Chinese cities, except it'll go much farther.
Yeah. I saw somebody like dug up an ant city. Ants can build actual cities.
Oh, those cities look fascinating, man.
I felt bad for the ants because they poured cement into the
yeah, exactly, to make it not collapse when they dig it up.
Fucking dick.
Yeah,
it's an amazing city. It's beautiful to see, but fucking dick, you didn't have to fuck up their whole city, bro.
I know, man. There's actually an ant war going on as we speak. Like different species of ants are fighting. It's crazy.
It's natural. It's nature.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. Wow. Cool, guys. I'll stop the talk here. I'll still talk with my man here after I stop recording. But for those of you watching, putting all the links down in the description and pinned comments, you guys can leave your questions. We will bring Jason back, aka Healer Mind Body Coach. Thank you, Jason.
You guys can check out my page at youtube.com/focusball or my website, thefocusballs with an S.com.
Cool.